Beedle Bard bonus video number 2, and this would be the Fountain of Fair Fortune. The quintessential work for what you want and don't expect it to be handed to you story that somehow... Let's look at the positives first. This story does lay out a lot of ways that you can work towards what you want. And it's not just hard work, though we do see that going through. We have things like form positive community. The three witches, of course, get together at the start, and all recognizing that they have different needs and different wants, but the same goal, decide to work together towards that, even though they do recognize the fact that not all of them are going to be able to have it, in theory. So they form a community. That community actually expands to include Sir Luckless, the knight. And we have this little weird thing of sort of the trying to reject that expansion of community, but in fact end up including it. So I think that's the idea of a community is going to help you, but it might not always be the community you expect. And they might help you in different ways. We then have another thing that we're not always thinking about, which is to respect your feelings and to be able to let them show every now and then. And this is the moment with the worm of just deciding to cry for a bit is okay. It is okay to be upset and to be sad and to want more. It is okay. But that can't be permanent. You can't constantly be crying. You need to satisfy that worm of sadness in your belly, and then you need to keep going. We then, of course, have the sweat part, which is the work hard part. Is even when you don't feel like you're getting anywhere, keep going. Have courage to do that. And move forward even when it doesn't look like you are getting what you want, because you are moving forward. Then, of course, there is the letting go of things entirely. Not just venting your feelings, but letting go of things that will destroy you. Whether or not that's people, like we're actually having here, she technically lets go of the memories, but she lets go of this person that she thought she loved and probably did love, but found that person hurt her more than helped her. And she let go of that. Just... sometimes you have to make that decision, and you need to let the negatives in your life go, and whether that's people, or that's memories, or that's things, or that's events, you need to let them go, because you can't live constantly in the past. You're never going to achieve something in the future if you are constantly living in the past. Be kind to one another. Which is sort of the final lesson we get right at the fountain, where, okay, we know this woman really is sick, so let's help her, and try and help her in one way. That's not working, okay, try and help her in another. Be open-minded about what you can do. The girl that's trying to get over how powerless she is goes from something like wanting her wand back to, I could help people and I could make my way in the world through that, to moving on with our third witch and her loveless lover be willing to move on to seriousness. And seriousness, of course, is just doing it. Have the guts to just ask for what you want. Because it's either going to work in your favor or it's not. And if it's not going to work in your favor, well, you've got all these ways that you can go about moving past that now that we've climbed the hill to the fountain. So we actually get quite a few, like, really good lessons about how you can achieve what you want. And in the end, the three witches achieve what they want without the fountain's help, and we find out even Sir Luckless the Knight has done so, because the fountain actually doesn't have an enchantment. So we move through, and one of the interesting things I find in here is we are seeing, sometimes directly stated, other times not, the major four houses of Hogwarts. Courage to just keep going. The hard work it needs to keep going. The intelligence it takes to figure out what you need to give. Because at first, the first two they find out by mistake, but the third they actually, like, that's just straight up, she figures it out. And then, of course, people are looking at it, like, at Slytherin and going, wow, you know, where does ambition fit in? The fact that they are there in the first place. They each have something that they want, and they're willing to work towards it. In fact, all three of the other houses are under the umbrella of ambition. It is, you need the courage and the intelligence and the hard work to achieve that ambition. So what it actually is pointing out is that you can't divide the houses up in these moments. All of them are going to help work together to get you where you want to go. And that's okay. You don't need to look at yourself and divide yourself up in that way. It can be a bundle of just a confusing mess, but you can move yourself towards something that you really want. Which is what's happening here. And most notably, not doing it by yourself. Go together. Bring the people who seem weaker than you with you. Bring the people who seem stronger. Support each other's weaknesses with your own strengths. Help the people who are lower down get higher up. Help the people who are sick. Be kind. Let go. Work hard. Be courageous in community. It's a lot of really good lessons that we're getting here. But there's one little thing that's nagging me. This is only a lesson that these four people get. The last line tells us, of course, that the fountain doesn't even have an enchantment on it. But the thing is, these four people have figured out that they can just do what they gotta do. Move forward, keep going. They've got a community now, they've got friendships now, they've got love now, they've got what they need now. But what about all the other hundreds of people who are gathered here? They don't get this lesson. For them, the story remains, if I can get to the fountain, then the fountain can fix everything. And that's not what we should be teaching people. Reading the entire story, we of course learn differently, but there are still hundreds of people who think, if I just get this one thing, that will fix everything. And whether or not that's a fountain of good fortune, or money, or love, or health, or power, or courage, guts, all of these things. We know now that we can work hard, and we can be kind, and we can let go, and we can achieve what we want, and a fountain isn't going to give it to us. But what about all those other people who don't learn that lesson? We've left a lot of people behind. Do we go back and show them what we have learned? We don't actually get that in this story. So I think it's something we need to keep in mind. On to Albus Dumbledore's notes. Interestingly enough, Dumbledore's notes on this help to sort of point out one of the positives of the story, and that is community, that sometimes in a quick reading we might actually miss. Because we're looking at the more obvious things like letting go and working hard and things like that, that we're missing the fact that these people have needed to team up and work together to actually get anywhere. But what Dumbledore does is he points out the negative side of these things. That is, when you live in a community but you only think of yourself. The first big section of Dumbledore's notes, of course, is a discussion of the terrible attempt at this play in the Hogwarts Great Hall, in which we had a creature explode, a fire start, Sir Lucullus having broken up with his girlfriend to go out with one of the other girls, those two girls then dueling, the disagreement between Kelburn, the magical creatures professor, and headmaster at the time, Dippet, yeah. And all of these arguments that are actually going on. The second half of the notes is Lucius Malfoy's argument to have this book banned, which is the fact that it presents a witch in the end and a muggle moving forward in a relationship together, and how this is not something we should present to our children, in which, of course, Dumbledore responds that you have a tendency to reject your own family members if they're not powerful enough or not magical. So I think you could stop with the hypocrisy of telling us who we should and should not accept. With that said, of course, we are pointing out how there are difficult moments in community. It might sometimes seem a lot easier to reject part of the population, reject the muggles, reject the purebloods, reject this particular person. But that's the thing. That's why this play was such a disaster, is because none of the people really were working together to achieve what they want. They weren't communicating. They were doing what they wanted to do and ignoring all else. For example, the director that we had who wanted to put this on, ignoring the fact that it's students and they're going to have their own difficulties. And we have this relationship that's broken up and formed another relationship. Those students not being able to let go of that and continue on with what they have to do. The magical creatures professor not discussing with anybody about the magical creature he's actually going to use. Like, it's all this mess of getting what you want at the detriment of everybody else. Which is exactly, of course, what the tale is arguing against. The tale is, if you work together and let yourself be open to other opportunities, you can achieve what you want. There's no magical answer for it. It's friendship. So we have a bit of a warning here, simply with the fact that if you think of yourself only, you will then cause more problems than you will solutions. And I think that is the key lesson to take away from Dumbledore here. Also, just because you don't agree with something doesn't mean you can just get rid of it. Also a key lesson. Okay, so that would be 2 stories so far. I'm heading on to the next one. Let's keep going, and I will see you next time.